Actually, that reminds me of a little joke that I have been laughing about for the last couple of days.
Please tell me.
So, this guy says to his friend, I've been dating twins. And his friend says, well, how do you tell them apart? He's like, well, Veronica has the most beautiful smile and Peter has a thick mustache.
Awesome.
It's a conspiracy!
As many times as you want. No pressure, buddy.
Welcome back, everyone, to It's a Conspiracy, the podcast where we lay out the beliefs behind selected conspiracy theories, alternative accounts, legends, myths, and more. We will do our best to explain these without offering opinions on validity, accuracy, etc. until the end of the episode, where we will give a brief opinion or comment on each. I'm your host, Andrew, and I'm by no means an expert in this field. I'm simply interested in knowing what it is that the supporters of these theories believe, and all the information here was gathered online and is probably riddled with inaccuracies because, these things change all the time. So once again, joining me today is my good friend, Charlie.
Yo.
Hey. And I'm going to present Charlie with some theories, and he will interject as he sees fit.
I am stoked to be the Scully to your Mulder.
Oh, man. Yeah. Now, Charlie, as always, we're just always being twice. That is, I'm going to do my best to include the resources in the notes for the podcast. Once again, we're going to go to Wikipedia. It's probably all changed. Someone's going to go in there and wiki hack the whole thing and be like, bah, 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 bah. And so, yeah. Okay, now, Charlie, with a yes or no, can you tell me if you've heard of any of these three theories?
Let's do it.
Building 7 theory.
No.
The New World Order theory.
I know all about the New World Order.
Paul is dead theory.
Is it a movie? A comedy?
Oh, here we go.
Oh, wait. I think I might know what that is.
Oh, yes or no? It's a simple question, man. Binary.
It sounds like a movie name, but now I think I figured it out.
No, it's not it's not a movie. He's all figured it out. All right. Okay. So number one, we are going to talk about Building 7 theory.
It doesn't add up. A lot of it doesn't add up. Hence these questions, and there's two areas. There's Building 7 and there's the 5 frames from the Pentagon. Don't listen to me. Do your own research.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, 2 planes hit the World Trade Center in New York City. Do you recall that day, Charlie?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Later that day, around 5:20 p.m., World Trade Center Building 7. So there was actually 7 buildings labeled World Trade Center. There wasn't just the 2. There were 7. So the 7th building collapsed completely on its own, like hours later.
Okay, hold on now, though. I need some clarification. So the pictures and everything on TV only shows 2 towers.
I know. Yeah.
What are the other 5?
So there's the 2 giant ones, and then there's 5 other varying size.
Oh, okay. They're just like surrounding.
The twin towers are like the big ones.
Right.
And those are the ones that the planes hit. But the Trade Center 7 was like really close, but wasn't actually, we'll get into it, but it's another building in the little, it's like a 7 building plaza, I believe is what they call it. Now, obviously Building 7 wasn't hit by a plane. And so this has become a focal point for theorists, insisting that the only way for this to have happened would be with controlled explosives.
All right.
Yeah. Now there are 3 main points backing up the WTC 7 theory. Number 1, it is not mentioned in the NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology report delivered at the end of the 6-year investigation. Number 2, no planes hit the building. Number 3, and this is the big one, the BBC reported this building as having collapsed before it actually happened. I know. Suspicious. I've also got a bonus point here, which I feel belongs in the 4 main points, or the 3 main points. So this is like 3.5 points here. There is a recording where Larry Silverstein, the owner of the building, made a very cryptic quote about what to do with the building in the midst of all the carnage. Right? Cryptic as in who knows what he meant, and he laughed hysterically at the end.
What did he say?
He said, I'll tell you what he said later on, but at the end of it, he did a... He didn't actually do that, but...
And then followed it up with, I would have got away with it if it wasn't for you damn kids.
Here I was. It was Old Man Jenkins the whole time. Several videos of the collapse event exist in the public domain, thus enabling comparative analysis from different angles. of perspective. Okay, so I'm going to break these down into different sections.
Break it down.
Number one, the NIST report. Okay, now you just go ahead and stop me whenever I say something that you're not sure about. Okay?
What's the NIST report?
The NIST report is the report from the, just a sec here, just a minute. Let me back up here just one sec. The National Institute of Standards and Technology. I'm just going to say NIST. So that stands for National Institute of Standards and Technology. Okay, now next time I say something that you're not familiar with, you just go ahead and stop me.
Absolutely.
Okay, personal hygiene.
Why are you looking at me like I don't know what that means?
I'm sorry. That's just a little joke there. Okay. Now, the NIST report. Proponents typically say the collapse of the 7 World Trade Center was not mentioned in the 9/11 Commission report, and that the federal body charged with investigating the event, NIST, required 7 years to conduct its investigation and issue a report. In November 2010, Fox News reporter Geraldo Rivera, remember that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're pronouncing it wrong.
Geraldo?
There you was it.
Sorry.
Wasn't it Geraldo Riviera?
I think it was Geraldo. I'm sorry. I just saw G. Geraldo. Whatever it is. I'm terrible with pronunciations. Holy
general
just
speaking.
Speaking. I can talk the speaking.
You got the voice for television?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't work the same way.
The face for radio and
the voice for television?
Yeah, the voice for painting or whatever it is. Okay, so Geraldo Rivera hosted members of a television ad campaign called Building What? There's a question mark in there. So building what?
Building what?
A series of commercials in which 9/11 family members ask questions about World Trade Center 7, call for an investigation into the collapse. Rivera called the television ads not so easy to dismiss as those demonstrators were, and stated, if explosives were involved, that would mean the most obnoxious protesters in recent years were right. That's Geraldo's voice. Yeah,
that's what that is?
That's what he sounds like. Days later, Rivera appeared on the program Freedom Watch with legal analyst Judge, Andrew Napolitano on the Fox Business Network to discuss building what? TV ad campaign. Napolitano stated, it's hard for me to believe that 7 World Trade Center came down by itself. I was gratified to see Geraldo Rivera investigating it. Yeah. So he's happy to see that
of
there's
things they don't understand about those accents.
A lot of voices going on here. Later on, NIST provided a digital reenactment of the event that has been highly criticized by people like the ones running architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. We're going to come back to that website, but that's a big thing. So here's a quote from their webpage. The question was, does NIST's computer animation of the collapse of World Trade Center 7 prove the building came down by fire? So the NIST people said, the building wasn't hit by a plane, but it collapsed because it was on fire. And the answer from the architects and engineers from 9/11 Truth is no. The NIST WTC 7 computer animation of the collapse does not even remotely resemble the observations and actual video footage of the destruction. A scientifically valid explanation of any phenomenon must account for the key observations. Moreover, a computer simulation does not constitute an explanation. It is merely a tool for determining and visualizing what might have happened if various assumptions are true. NIST has refused to disclose the computer inputs of its mathematical models. This makes it impossible for anyone to check their work. Mm-hmm. Okay, so NIST is like, no, it caught on fire and then it fell apart.
And don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's all good. Actually, the other day, I got a little teary about something, and a friend of mine was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. It's okay. It's totally cool." And I had tears, and he was like, "Oh, okay. Are you actually crying?" And I was like, "I am crying, but I'm perfectly fine. Thank you." I'm almost crying just thinking about it now. All right. Anyway, so that was NIST.
Was it when you were doing research for this show? You're tearing up a little bit.
I know this stuff gets me teary. Okay, so the second part is that no planes hit the building. So once again, this plane's like 2 blocks away, collapses. Many proponents of this theory have suggested something called nanothermite was used in the demolition. Charlie, are you familiar? No, you're not. Okay.
Wait. Okay, so nanotechnology is really small things. So nanothermite, then if I'm breaking it down, would be really, really small thermites.
Thermites being what? Oh, here we go. Really small thermites. Yeah, okay, you're true. You're right. Yes, you are right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't. You're absolutely right. It is very small thermites. Okay. Now, many proponents of this theory have suggested something called nanothermite, which is, as Charlie just explained, very tiny thermites, was used in the demolition. Aside from the debate of the physics of what happened in the collapse of the towers, there is another piece of evidence of a controlled demolition that is hard to deny, namely the presence of thermite. Now, here's what thermite is.
Yeah, what is it?
Thermite is a powdered amalgam of iron oxide and other alloys that can be described as the metal equivalent to kindling. This powder works as an igniter, generating extremely high temperatures. Nanothermite is a more highly advanced version developed by the military for its customizable reaction rates and incredibly small particulate size.
Yeah,
It releases nano, exactly. It releases energy much quicker than regular thermite and can be ignited by unconventional means such as laser pulses. Now, I know you do an amazing laser pulse sound.
Oh, yeah.
Pew, 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 pew. Oh, man. Star of the show right there. That is amazing. Okay. So they're not saying, he's like, I'm not saying, but
Just saying.
just saying.
Not saying, just saying.
Yeah, man. The presence of nanothermite in dust from the wreckage of the towers was brought to the attention of NIST by a guy named, his last name Jones, not Alex Jones, different Stephen Jones, I believe his name
Barnaby
is.
Jones?
Barnaby Jones, Clester Jones. The investigators questioned the provenance of his samples. That's a great word. And when he invited them to look for samples of their own, they unsurprisingly declined. This is NIST again being like, yep, no
worry about
nanothermite here. No.
Just regular sized thermites.
Regular thermite. A stream of molten metal was also recorded pouring out of the towers before they collapsed, an indication of nanothermite at work. Have you heard the theory about how molten metal was coming out of the ground floors of the building?
Oh.
And people are like, hey, steel doesn't melt at 3,000 degrees or whatever.
Lava, man.
It's not, well, yeah, molten, but it's just like lava.
Well, no, but it's like that's what the lava men shoot when they come up from underground.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure what okay. Charlie's cutting into the silly juice here. Some proponents of World Trade Center controlled demolition theories, that's the overall arc, that suggest that 7 WTC was demolished because it may have served as an operational center for the demolition of the Twin Towers. While others suggest that the government insiders may have wanted to destroy key files held in the building pertaining to corporate fraud. The WC buildings house dozens of federal...
Look, why don't they just shred it?
They could have just shredded the whole thing, but they're saying let's blow up the whole place because they were all scheduled to be hit by planes, but only 2 of them were actually hit. And then
Why didn't you just make sure the files were in the right buildings?
Yeah, man, totally. Could have moved them all.
Yeah.
I guess it's easier to get a plane to fly into a building than move files.
Or get a shredder.
Or get a shredder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or get the shredder.
Get the shredder.
According to a statement reported by the BBC, Loose Change film producer Dylan Avery thinks the destruction of the building was suspicious because it housed some unusual tenants. Okay, so this building that went down included a clandestine CIA office on the 25th floor. I wonder if that was actually what it said, like nicely
Right there on the
stenciled on the
plate,
window. Yeah. Clandestine CIA inside, secret. An outpost of the U.S. Secret Service, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and New York City's Emergency Command Center. The former chief counterterrorism advisor to the president, Richard Clark, does not think that 7 WTC...
Wait, Richard Clark.
Richard Clark was
Dick Clark.
Dick Clark. Yes. The former chief counterterrorism advisor, Dick Clark, who also had a hand in American Bandstand, does not think that 7 WTC is mysterious and has said that anyone could have rented floor space in the building. So there's probably
there's
a
flower
KFC,
shop.
a flower shop. Yeah.
Man, that would be a great being a door guy for that building.
Oh, you're going to the CIA place. Yep. The taco joints on 4.
It's right past the proctologist to your left.
Ignore the clandestine CIA
ask
office.
for Dick.
It's important to note that at the time of this theory coming out, World Trade Center 7 falling down and it becoming a very big thing, no steel frame high-rise had ever before collapsed because of a fire, ever. Although there had been previous cases of collapses or partial collapses of smaller steel buildings due to fire. However, the ability of such a building to be completely destroyed by fire was demonstrated by the collapse of the Plasco building in Tehran in 2017 and here we go, Wilton Pes de Almeida building in Sao Paulo, Brazil, hurrah, the following year.
Sorry, what was that again?
The Wilton Pes de Almeida building in Sao Paulo, Brazil, hurrah, the following year. In addition, 7 WTC also sustained significant structural damage during the collapse of 1 WTC, which is one of the Twin Towers, from ejected debris. Okay. That's a very long way of saying no giant steel building had ever fallen down because of a fire before, and this one did, and it was also hit. Mm-hmm. And since it fell down, 2 other buildings fell down. One of them being in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Hurrah! The news. Now, this is the one.
My question would be, is there also the nanothermite found in those other buildings that have fallen around the world?
That it was... No, there was no nanothermite. Well, it doesn't say. There may have been some nanothermites or regular thermites found in the collapse of the Plasco building. The Plasco building, Plasco building in Tehran. Maybe thermites, I don't know. Yeah. And there may have been thermites in the Wilton Paes de Almeida building in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Hurrah! So I couldn't tell you, man. Now the news. Okay, so there was a lady on the BBC who, after the Twin Towers fell, because they'd both fallen by this point, and later on that day, she's like, "Yeah, the number 7, it fell too," and it was put on a green screen, so it looks like she's standing in front of a window, but she was actually in front of a green screen. But the video footage, she's standing there, and you can see the World Trade Center 7 standing behind her. And she's like, it fell down. And then after that went out to the world, it did in fact fall down. Yeah, so someone got the memo, but let it go a little early, I guess. She says...
It's like Karen from accounting. Yeah. Never let her in on the plan.
Just, Karen, you're out.
Karen.
Jane Standley was her name. The reporter who announced the collapse prematurely called it a very small and very honest mistake caused by her thinking on her feet after being confronted with a report she had no way of checking. All right, now the bonus point. Here's where the creepy quote comes in.
Yeah.
In the PBS documentary, America Rebuilds, which aired in September 2002, Larry Silverstein, great name, the owner of 7 WTC and leaseholder and insurance policy holder for the remainder of the WTC complex. So the guy who owned the buildings, owned the leases, owned the insurance policy holder. So they went down and he became just a real rich guy. He recalled a discussion with the fire department in which doubts about containing the fires were expressed. Silverstein recalled saying, "We've had such a terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it." They made the decision to pull, he recalled, and we watched the building collapse. Silverstein issued a statement that it was the firefighting team, not the building, that was to be pulled, contradicting theorist allegation that pull was used in a demolition-related sense. So he was like, pull it, meaning the team.
Right, pull the team out,
not
as opposed to pull the building down.
Yeah, not pull it as in like there's a cord that you pull it, and he'd just been waiting to use it the entire time. Okay, now I said it in like a nice way, but I'm going to say it in like a villainous kind of way, so that the people that are saying he slipped. We've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. They made the decision to pull, and we watched the building collapse. So what he's saying there, he's like, I pressed that button I'd had built after I got the memo. I saw the planes, and I was like, oh, it's plane day, and I pulled it. Recently, the University of Alaska Fairbanks has decided to put together a team of PhD students to digitally reconstruct Building 7 and publish their findings in what they've labeled as open and transparent. As of March 2018, they have yet to publish anything. Oh. Coincidentally, the heads of this research team, Dr. Leroy Hulsey, I believe that's his name. So the guy that's the head of this research is also the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. Those are the guys that were like, there was the quote earlier from them about...
the thing that I'm really enjoying so far.
Yeah, the guy that was like, was World TC 7, how do we prove it came down by fire? I don't believe the computer reenactment. So
well,
he's
a
the guy.
computer reenactment.
It's a computer reenactment. So the guy that doubts that computer animation, he put together a university-funded study team, and he also happens to run the website that's like, that computer animation is false.
.org.
Yeah, it's actually ae911.com or something. I don't know. All right. So here are a couple of sample FAQs from the website, which I'll link in the details. FAQs. And you can check out more if you'd like. Now, I'll put the link to the website, but I'm only going to read, I think I've got one here. Okay. So FAQ. What is nanothermite? Could it have been used to demolish the Twin Towers and WTC 7?
So I asked.
Yeah, that's what you asked.
Yeah.
In order to understand what nanothermite is, we must first understand what ordinary commercial thermite is. Thermite is a mixture of one metal, usually aluminum, with the oxide of another metal, usually iron oxide, in a granular or powder form. You with me so far?
I really wanted you to say it's a type of bug that eats wood.
Yeah.
That's something different.
When ignited, the energetic alpha thermite reacts and produces molten iron and aluminum oxide. With the molten iron reaching temperatures well in excess of 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, these temperatures are certainly high enough to allow cuts through structural steel, which generally has a melting point of around 2,750 degrees Fahrenheit. That was the thing. The planes, even if they hit the buildings and all the gas was burning, it wouldn't. The theory is that the temperature wouldn't have generated.
Wouldn't have melted the beams.
It wouldn't have melted the beams, but some nanothermite would have melted those beams. I just totally, every time I say nanothermite, I'm like, do you remember when Princess Leia was wearing kind of the weird, like, Boba Fett Jr. costume in Return of the Jedi?
Sure.
And she's like, I'm holding a thermal detonator. Yeah. So nanothermite. And then she blew that place up.
Oh, spoilers.
Spoilers. Then she blew that place up. A variant of thermite is thermate, which is a combination of thermite and sulfur, a combination that is more efficient at cutting through steel. This form of thermite is believed to have been used in the demolition of World Trade Center Building 7. Although conventional thermite has the capability to cut through structural steel, it is technically an incendiary and not explosive. Nanothermite, this is amazing. Nanothermite, also known as super thermite, is simply put an ultrafine grained UFG variant of thermite that can be formulated by explosive, adding gas releasing substances. A general rule in chemistry is that the smaller the particles of the reactants, the faster the reaction. Nanothermite, as the name suggests, is thermite in which the particles are so small that they are measured in nanometers. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally nailed that part.
Yeah, and you nailed that part.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. All right, so that's World Trade Center 7. It's an interesting one, and it has some big support from guys like Charlie Sheen. We will have heard his introduction. Yeah, just before he really kind of launched into full gear. He released a big thing, asking President Obama to look into WTC 7 because he was suspicious.
And he kind of went off the rails.
Yeah, a little after that. Maybe that's why they slipped him some.
You get another one of those beers?
I sure do. And so, what are we drinking here, Charlie? What's
looks like the Sin Bin Red Ale.
Oh, nice.
From the Medicine Hat Brewing Company.
Well, good. Sin Bin Red Ale.
It is some timeless craft beer. Let me tell you about it. It's smooth, it's even keeled, and it's a little bit malty. You know.
I'm just going to go ahead and read what's on the back here. The Sin Bin Red Ale is meant to contribute to some great stories for those that enjoy a timeless craft brew. The Sin Bin will satisfy the taste buds of many and was brewed with the anticipation of converting some of the light lager drinkers over to the ale side. Yeah.
I think I'm an ale guy.
I'm an ale guy myself. Yeah. In fact, I think ale have another one. Speaking of ale, guys,
Let's get another one.
here's your ale right there.
Dig it.
Yeah, Medicine Hat Brewery. Good stuff. And it comes in a nice can. I brought this in. I brought a sextet of beers in, and Charlie's like, Andrew, did you bring over a bag of Coca-Cola? And I was like, oh, man, come on.
Oh, we getting lit tonight.
Yeah. This time of night, I don't drink Coca-Cola. I'll be up all night. And as I mentioned last time, I've had a bit of a bedwetting problem, and nothing lights that fire like a couple cans of cola. Ooh. All right, now we're going to talk about the New World Order.
New World Order.
For life.
Oh, yeah, I know all about the New World Order. It was great in the 90s in wrestling when Hulk Hogan joined forces with the Outsiders. They made the New World Order, and they took over wrestling, WCW wrestling. It was beautiful.
That is a conspiracy for another day.
That shit really happened.
This is one of those ones, kind of like the reptile people, probably like a lot of the theories we'll discuss, where
I believe they're called Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki or the whatever, the Archans. This is one of those theories where everything gets lumped into this. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of this. once again, there is a great celebrity thrown into the middle of this. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I'll get back to that. But this one's one of those ones where you're like, anything can be attributed to this. Okay. So here's a quote from Luke Rudowski at the We Are Change Foundation. The New World Order is a global crime syndicate established by the royal elite, the richest people, the 1% that control over 80% of the world's wealth. These are the people that want to set up a one world government so that they can have more power in less people's hands. Kablam! So that's Luke Rudowski. Now, the New World Order, or NWO, is claimed to be an emerging clandestine totalitarian world government by various conspiracy theories. There's nothing in here about Hollywood Hogan.
Well, then.
I know. Shame.
Some sort of revisionist bullshit over there. Yeah, dude.
It's got to happen, man. Okay, so various conspiracy theories are included in this one, including end time, Freemasonry, the Illuminati, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, Round Table, the Open Conspiracy, New Age religions, Fourth Reich, alien invasions, transgender agenda, race war, gradualism, coup d'etat, mind control, population control, FEMA camps, school shootings, rigged elections, Georgia Guidestones, CFR, Monsanto, quote mining, not exactly sure what that is, RFID, flu vaccines, vaccination, the Book of Revelation, etc. Basically anything that's the sniffs suspicious is included in here. The common theme in conspiracy theories about a new world order is that there's a secretive power elite with a globalist agenda, which is conspiring to eventually rule the world through an authoritarian world government, which will replace sovereign nation states. And they'll have an encompassing propaganda whose ideology hails the establishment of the new world order as the culmination of everything up to that point. So it'd be like, you know what, man, he was talking about this way back in the day. This was what Moses had in mind. This is what Sir Isaac Newton had in mind. This is what Sammy Davis Jr. had in mind. This is what Hollywood Hogan had in mind.
You know what? What you just described is exactly what played out on television.
And it's exactly what played out on television. Yeah. Just all coming together in one rich broth at both the national and international levels. And it's all about world domination. All right. Now, here's a question that I saw online. And this answer, I was like, okay.
What's the question?
The question is, what is the New World Order? The answer, I'll do this in one breath here. The New World Order is a conspiracy theory which posits a new period of history bringing about a major change in the world with the balance of world power. The New World Order is theorized by some to involve a group or groups of elitist people bent on ruling the world through a single worldwide system of government. The appeal of this New World Order lies in its proposal to free the world of wars and political strife and its promises to eradicate poverty, disease, and hunger. Its purpose to meet the needs and hopes of all mankind through worldwide peace. Oh, okay.
You made it.
So peace being control. Man.
Yeah.
That's not peace though.
Yeah, dude.
That's control. Although I'll tell you, peace in my house is when the kids are under control. I'm talking. Yeah. Now globalization is the name of the game here, and that's where it's like, hey, wait a minute, these guys get really. It's like anyone trying to unite the world, that New World Order. Anyone trying to start a war, New World Order. Even though maybe starting a war isn't the same as globalizing. Okay. Basically,
the war starts because you're trying to take over.
You're trying to take over.
A is trying to take over B, and B won't submit, so you got to do it by force. So it's exactly what it is, right?
I guess so. It's like they're trying to unite everybody.
Hey, join our team. No, okay, well then we'll take it.
And then we'll take it over.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, I guess we'll get into our opinions later, Charlie.
This is not opinion. This is fact.
We'll get into our opinions damn well later. Okay, now it is to effect this change, it is believed that the New World Order will emphasize tolerance through the promotion and acceptance of other cultures and their values and ideologies. That's what I was just trying to say, man.
Tolerance.
Its ultimate goal is a sense of unity and oneness with all people speaking the same language, using one world currency, and having a oneness in politics, religion, and moral values. Charlie, what would you say is your greatest moral value, do you think?
I got nothing.
I thought so.
How about you? Have you thought about this?
My moral value, I want to say empathy, But I'm also, if there's a window in the house open, I can damn well feel it. I'll be like, there's a draft coming from somewhere. I know that's not under moral values.
I was going to say, I have really good hearing, but I don't think that counts. That's not.
And you're the one that can't taste anything.
That's right.
But you can smell.
No, I can't. No. Hold on.
Wait a minute.
It's the other way around. I can't smell.
You can't smell. But you can
and I got bad eyesight because I got glasses. But I hear real well.
Okay, Daredevil. That's that was just I got Charlie on an off night when he wasn't out fighting the Foot Clan.
That's a later.
Yeah, so basically they're like, peace, the absence of war, the elimination of political unrest, everybody uses the same money. Basically, anyone...
Would that be a cryptocurrency?
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Oh,
you're getting ahead of me here.
Sorry.
Oh,
I didn't read the notes,
easy.
I swear.
Spoilers. Basically, any well-known figure of the past can and has been associated with the New World Order via some aspect of connected theories. Now, there's a great quote from Mark Twain on this when people are like, see, it goes back that far. Twain said, if voting made a difference, they wouldn't actually let us do it.
Oh,
I know. Boom. Couldn't be more true today.
You've been twained.
Yeah, you've been twained. Hashtag twained. More recent. Oh, here's Kate. This is great. This is a direct. I copied this and I'll have it in the links. Okay, so it's going to list a bunch of celebrities. One of these might stick out just a little.
All right.
Okay, more recent examples of celebrities pushing the NWO agenda are Jay-Z, Rihanna, Beyonce, Madonna, Katy Perry, Britney Spears, and Willie Nelson.
Yeah, but he's high like all the time.
He's high, and he's all about biodiesel, and he's like, I want to help the farmers reclaim the earth.
Yeah, I mean,
and he believes in.
I would join Willie Nelson's NWO
absolutely.
in a second.
How rad would Willie World be?
Sure.
Like really, Willie. It would be Willie great.
Willie good.
Willie good. Willie good. Everybody. I'm silly for Willie. And so the recent push for cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, like Charlie spoiled here a couple minutes ago.
I didn't read the notes.
Yeah, has been lumped in as a part of the New World Order, who are ready to push the transgender agenda, the race war, and other satanic priorities in order to keep us distracted from the real issues. So that's when you're like, hey man, you brought over Coke. I told you to bring beer. And I'm like, you didn't tell me to bring over anything. And then we start fighting. That's because they want us to fight about the real, or they want us distracted from the real issues.
Wow, that's television.
That's television.
Yeah.
That's
what that's there
the
for.
media right there. Now, there is a biblical angle to this theory as well. In the book of Revelation, John describes the single ruler of a vast 10-nation empire as having power and great authority given to him by Satan himself.
Cool.
Being followed by and receiving worship from all the world, having authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. Nation. Every Nathan everywhere is under control. Whoops. I was hanging out with Nathan Burns all weekend. Every Nathan. This person is the leader of a one world government, which is recognized as sovereign over all other governments and referred to as the beast or the Antichrist. Once entrenched in power, the beast or the Antichrist and the power behind him will move to establish absolute control over all peoples of the earth to accomplish their true end. One way they will accomplish this is by controlling all commerce. And this is where the idea of a one world currency comes in. In the Bible, it describes the one world currency is like, I'm going to grab your left hand and put a chip in it, or I'm going to put a chip in your forehead. And then when you go to buy your Zimas and your snappy
chip tap.
You'll use chip tap.
Be like, just smash my head on the counter and I'll get my Zimas.
I'm gonna smash my head to grab these sparkly shoelaces. And you won't be able to sell anything online anymore. So your little webcam operation will be shut down because you don't have the head smash chip thing. There's a big deal of speculation as to how exactly this mark will be affixed, but the technologies that are available right now could accomplish this very easily. One recent example is if you get a pet, you get it chipped, and that they can tell all kinds of things about it. So, yeah.
Where it's shitting in my house.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. And that is getting crazy. I had my phone stolen, and I could see the guy running away with the Find My Phone thing on a map
man.
before he turned the phone off. Yeah. Yeah, Quinn and that's a
I think I vaguely remember that situation.
Yeah. Boo.
It was a bad time.
It was a bad time.
Did you catch him?
I didn't. We didn't catch him. He got away.
What a
Turned up the phone.
monster.
But I got he left his bike.
So it was a trade. Was it a nice bike?
It was not a nice bike. I took it to the police, and they were like, yeah, this bike's stolen. I'm like, well, can I sell it and get the money for my phone back? And the guy's like, no.
Can I keep the bike?
He's like, no, we're going to give the bike back to the kid that got stolen from.
The guy traded me.
Yeah, he traded. He took my phone
and wallet.
And he left this sweet BMX. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was...
Did you at least take off some sweet jumps?
some sweet lollies. Some radical... I can't even think of it. Kick flips.
Kickflips.
I don't know if that's
skateboarding. Isn't it?
I don't know, man. If I tried any of that stuff, I would just like snap both ankles.
Oh, easily in a second. Yeah, I'm done.
I used to be able to like fall off my bike, and I would all the time.
Yeah,
I'd be fine. And now if I like nap for too long, it throws out my shoulder. Yeah. Or I'm like, I sat down too hard, my leg hurts.
Yeah, that's aging.
That's aging. It's not the years, man. It's the mileage. As you can tell from our labored breathing, I've just been reading so much that I can't.
You know what I appreciate about you?
What's that?
I appreciate that, and maybe it's funny because you have mentioned BBC so many times early off in the show, but the fact that you've done about as many accents as you would hear if you listen to a BBC news update.
Oh, hey, that's a nice thing to say to somebody.
I like that. That's why I like listening to BBC. That's why I like listening to this right now, even though I'm here.
That's good. That's good to hear. Okay, so our last one here, and this one I'm gonna really try to save my opinions on this one because this is one of the ones that I'm like, they're busting out. Just reading it, I'm like, you know, there's that term prairie dog, and this theory makes me prairie dog.
You're turtle heading it.
Just turtle heading it. Yeah. Oh, it's poking out. So yeah, this one's a big one.
What are we doing?
This is the Paul is dead hoax. Oh, sorry. This is the Paul is dead theory.
Hold on. Pause.
Damn it.
I'm going to cut that part out.
Okay. This is the Paul is dead theory.
Can you do it one more time?
This is the Paul is dead theory.
You remember when you were with the Beatles and you were supposed to be dead and there's all these clues that like you'd play some song backwards and it'd say like Paul is dead and everyone thought that you were dead or something.
Basically, this theory boils down to the notion that the bigger the name, the weirder the theory. Paul McCartney. Are you familiar with Paul McCartney, Charlie?
I think I've heard of him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a rapper, right?
Okay, I thought you were going to throw in another wrestling reference here. Yeah.
I'll keep those to one per show.
Yeah. Paul McCartney became a household name when he rose to prominence as part of the Beatles in the 60s. His star power has held steady, blah, 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 blah. But some conspiracy theorists believe that the Paul we know and love today is not Paul at all, but in fact, Fall. A faux Paul McCartney.
I know. They've named him.
Faux Paul. I'm not even
the best name they could come up with was Fall.
And it's spelled F-A-U-L. Yeah, I know. Fall.
It's a big fail. Fall
McCartney.
Fall fail.
So if you go on YouTube, you can see, there's a lot of videos about this stuff, and you can see people like, because Fall's blah blah blah, and they're calling him that. All right, now here's the version of the story. On November 9th, 1966, Paul McCartney picked up a hitchhiker, a young blonde girl, on his way home from or on his way to a Rolling Stones concert.
Mm-hmm. I bet he did.
She immediately recognizes him, and something ensues that ends up resulting in the vehicle he's driving going off the road and him dying in the crash. Yep. Conspiracy theorists claim that John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr worried about how his death might impact the Beatles' huge commercial success. So they covered him up, and he looked the part, he acted the part, he even sounded the part. Extreme theorists have pointed to discrepancies in older photos of Paul and more recent photos, claiming that details like chin shape, eye color, hairline, height, and the placement of his ears are dead giveaways. Fall's head size and shape are also supposedly different from McCartney's. Some theorists go so far as to say that Shears was a Canadian orphan who had once won a McCartney lookalike competition. So the story goes, the Beatles were able to continue on with their hit-making career undisturbed, the big secret hidden from the world, but according to McCartney truthers, Lennon, Harrison, and Starr began to feel guilty about the cover-up, so they began leaving clues that hinted at McCartney's untimely death via their album covers and even in the songs themselves. Have you ever heard about all this stuff before with like...
Very little.
Yeah, okay. So if you look, we're going to talk about some covers here and then some songs. The cover for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, released in 1967, so just a few months after the accident supposedly happened, is supposedly the biggest clue on the covers. Theorists asserting that the image of the whole thing is not a gathering, but a giant funeral, like big cemetery, big graveyard.
Ooh. Is Paul in there?
Damn it!
Doing it again.
Spoilers, man. They point to the freshly dug earth in the foreground. The younger Beatles all dressed in black, because they're on there twice. There's the new ones and the old ones with the mop tops beside them. A patch of yellow flowers prominently displaying in the front. It's displaying a big bass guitar. And then right behind Paul McCartney, there's a guy holding up his hand over the top of his head, which it's said in Asian cultures represents death. If you have a hand behind someone's head, and there's cultures where you're not allowed to touch the head and stuff like that.
No head touching, please.
Yeah, no head touching. Don't touch my head. And this is my favorite one. There is, perhaps most telling, a small doll with blonde hair wearing a blood-soaked Rolling Stones sweater and holding a tiny car, allegedly the type McCartney drove, in her lap, sitting on a chair right in front of the graveyard.
Now, hold on. How do you know that's a blood-soaked?
You'll have to look at it. You have to.
Is it obvious?
It's a Rolling Stone sweater. It's so what it says the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And so the Rolling is white.
Yeah.
And then Stones is all like red and splattered.
Okay, so it does look like it for sure looks like blood splatter.
I never noticed this until I had that pointed out, and then I was like, it does look like she was covered in blood, and there is a car.
Okay.
Which goes back to the girl he picked up. Yeah.
Was she wearing a Rolling Stones?
Well, no,
was she sent by the Rolling Stones?
She was sent by the Rolling Stones. Now, she was either because they were either coming from or going to a Rolling Stones concert.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Now, we're going to come back and talk about some theories about the Rolling Stones in a little bit.
Yeah.
But, that is but one of the tapestry of conspiracy
theories. What else you got? What other covers?
Oh, no, I'm going to come back to that one because I'm saving that one for episode 5. Perhaps one of the best known is their 1968 track, Revolution Number 9. We're going to stick that in right here.
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, Neanderman, 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 Neanderman.
Wow, that's amazing.
Okay.
What a great clip. Smooth as silk. If you play I'm So Tired backwards, you get a recorded phrase that sounds kind of like, Paul is dead. Miss him. Miss him. Slow down Strawberry Fields Forever. And you can hear John saying, I buried Paul. In interviews, however, Lennon has explained that the phrase he said was, of course, cranberry sauce. Because that's the kind of thing somebody just...
That sounds a bit obvious.
Yeah. Cranberry sauce.
Well, and what is that other song when you play it backwards? You get like,
there's a lot, man. There's a whole bunch.
You get like some vegan recipe.
Yeah, that's Maybe I'm Amazed. But that was Fall. Fall put that in there.
Oh, well, cranberry sauce.
Yeah, it'll zip you up a nice lentil and bean dip. Then there is the and maybe the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is the biggest kind of funeral looking one. But probably the most famous one that fans of this theory are like, that's the one where it's the most obvious, is the famous cover of the Abbey Road album. Are you familiar with the Abbey Road
walking
album?
across the street.
Walking across the street.
No shoes.
One of them.
Yeah.
Not wearing shoes. Okay, now all 4 bandmates are crossing the street towards their studio. In the picture, John is all white, Ringo's all black, Paul McCartney isn't wearing shoes, and George Harrison is like in a Canadian tuxedo, I guess they call it. All denim.
That's boss.
Just denim all day. Yeah.
Denim on denim. That's boss.
So John is supposed to be an angel. Ringo is supposed to be like a priest or a pastor. Paul McCartney is supposed to be a dead guy because apparently they don't bury people wearing shoes. I don't know if that's true. And George is...
it's a waste of shoes.
Yeah, so when you're buried, they don't put shoes on.
Well, yeah, okay. And then when you go to like a funeral... and there's a casket, and it's open casket, it's oftentimes just the top half.
That's right. There might not be pants either.
What do you need pants or
You don't
shoes
need
for?
pants or
You
shoes.
don't need that shit where you're
man.
going.
Totally. So
Your meat costume is done. You've moved on.
Your meat costume. That's nice. Not. Oh, he's expired. We'll miss him so much. Hey, man, his meat costume is done. His meat suit, it's finished.
Send it to the cleaners.
Send it to the cleaners and don't put shoes on him.
No
That's
pants
a
or
wasteful-
shoes on him.
Yeah, actually, that's a bit terrifying to think that every viewing you've ever been to, the person was just naked from the waist down.
Yeah, and most people, when they die, they get a crazy erection. You got to pin that shit down.
Anywho, just shoeless. No, I'm not sure where else Charlie's going with this, with kind of a necrophiliac thing going on. But I
didn't say that.
no, well, corpses with boners. That's a bit of a. That's not the genre I'm trying to.
I'm just saying they got him.
Yeah. So Paul isn't wearing any shoes. If you look at it closely, he's also out of step with the rest of the group. They're all walking forward with their like right foot forward or whatever, and he's stepping the other way. And he is carrying a cigarette in his right hand, and he's famously left-handed. Yeah, I know. Also, the kind of coolest part in this cover, in my opinion, is in the background. There's this vehicle, and the license plate has 28IF written on it. So 28 if. Now, if Paul McCartney had been alive, so he would have been 28 if he had been alive.
Gotcha.
So the license plate 28 if.
Nowadays, if it was 28 AF, that would be a whole different thing.
Yeah. He's 28
Fucking
AF.
killing
Yeah.
that 28, son.
The Canadian connection was further confirmed by Paul McCartney wearing an OPP badge on his shoulder in the
you
liner
know me.
notes of the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This was obscured by the photograph and initially thought to be OPD, which stands for officially pronounced dead, but it's actually the insignia worn by the Ontario Provincial Police. You OPP.
You done with OPP?
I'm down with the OPP.
Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, you know me.
Yeah, that's what it means. It's a hip hop song from the 90s.
Yet another example that theorists point to is the significance of the black walrus that appears on the cover of the 1967 album Magical Mystery Tour. According to these theorists, the black walrus symbolizes death in certain Scandinavian cultures, and McCartney was undoubtedly in that animal costume. Are you, what would you associate walruses with on the rainbow of emotions?
I mean, they make me feel sad.
Okay, so you have two choices: fear or anger.
Oh.
In a truly, I'm sorry. Answer the question.
Oh, man. Sadness is between fear and anger. I'm sorry. When I look at a walrus, I guess fear if I am the walrus, because...
Yeah, because you never know what's going to happen to you, man. If you're a walrus.
Who could you?
Ugh. And every time I see a picture of a walrus, I think of a walrus, even just saying it right now in my head, right this minute. I think of that 50 First Date movies where,
I think of Ren and Stimpy.
There's a walrus in Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Call the police.
It's a classic.
It's so good. In a truly bizarre coincidence, or was it, on a later Beatles release, the White Album, Lennon sings on one track called Glass Onion. Well, here's another clue for you all. The walrus was Paul. Plus, in the liner notes, there's a picture of Paul's head immersed in a bathtub. The grim theory here is that this picture from the liner notes of the White Album is an actual autopsy photograph. Huh. Yeah, man. Yeah. So he was...
Now, okay, hold on. I got a question about this. Did the fall theories start? When did they start?
So that's the interesting thing. Okay, he allegedly died in 1966, and then all the way up to Abbey Road, which was years later, the hints were still coming. So the Beatles
Right,
never...
no, but like when did the public start having this?
They started catching on.
Like right away?
Right. There was a little,
okay.
little rumor mill.
So it wasn't like 10 years later.
No, it
that
wasn't
people
10
were
years
putting
later. It
it
was
together, a bunch of stoners hanging out, getting high, listening to Beatles albums, which they certainly did.
They certainly did. And there's a line in I'm the Walrus that's like the Joker laughs at you, all that kind of stuff, where it's like, these kids are sitting around putting this slowly together, and the Beatles are like, hi, they're going to find it. they're going to find the secret. Here it comes. And yeah, like it was fantastic.
That's your best British accent yet, though.
They're finding the secret now, Grandpa. Grandpa. Yeah, that's not really. That's very British. That's very Sussex.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of a yeah. All right, Charlie. Well, you know what it's time for.
Oh, what time is it?
It's opinion time.
Opinion time, opinion time. Hey everybody, it's opinion time, opinion time, opinion time. What's that on your face? It's opinion time.
Okay, so let's just recount these real quick. So, what was the first the theory that we talked about?
Building 7
Building 7. The second theory that we talked about
was the New World Order with fucking Hulk Hogan and Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash.
Macho Man was in there for a little while.
He got there.
Yeah, he got
but
there
it started
eventually.
off as those 3. And then
Yeah,
after that, just like your theory, they started taking all the powerful guys.
Oh, dude.
And then after a while, it was everybody into the pool.
That was their way of like the WCW, like letting everyone know what was really happening, in the world.
And it was before the internet really took off. So people didn't really, they were like, what's happening?
Once again, professional wrestling.
They were
It's
taking
there.
all the power into one organization. And if anybody was coming up to stop them, they would fight them and start a war and take them over, just like the NW. It was the NWO.
Yeah, man. No, you got it. And then the last one was, do you remember what it was called?
Yeah, Paul.
Paul is dead. Yeah, cool.
Fall the Walrus.
So what are your thoughts on World Trade Center 7?
Is there any way that those buildings were connected through some underground passages? Are they close enough together?
They're very close together.
Pretty close together?
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about what would have happened with the seismic.
Yeah, is there any
connections.
way that some vibrations or some shit maybe
100%
started some shit?
Buildings that size falling down, throwing out debris. So the buildings fell down.
Seismic, yeah.
The seismic
I mean,
vibrations of the buildings falling down.
That was the first thing that I thought.
Yeah.
It could have shaken up some shit, and maybe they had these.
Loosened it right up.
Loosened
And it was
right up.
It was being hit by stuff like debris, and it was burning. So
And it had those. What were they called again? What was that stuff?
Well, the theory is that there's nanothermites.
Yeah, so it's shaking up the nanothermites.
Shaking up the nanothermites.
Yeah, you know, nanothermites are fine when you have a bag of nanothermites that you got from Costco, but then you shake it up, that shit gets thermal.
It gets thermal, and that's the thing. So was it set off? Was it set off by the seismic vibrations, or
the Scooby-Doo villain,
or the Scooby-Doo Larry Silverstein? Yeah. Pull it. Yeah, and then so right there, I know that sound. Pull it. Pull it now, firefighters.
pull my building.
Yeah. So the fire could have set it off. The seismic vibrations could have set it off.
Yeah.
Or the Silverstein could have pulled it off. Silverstein, the Silver Sable could have pulled it off. And that's just the thing. So there's the research that said, we found some nanothermites in the wreckage, but it also said nanothermites are a combination of alloys. A building that size that had been burning that long, you're going to find alloys of different types.
Sure.
So
okay, now hold on. And now another point was that did they find nanothermites in the main towers?
so that was it. So NIST said no.
No. Okay.
But
They said no.
this guy went back and found some, and he was
Right.
like, I found some. Why don't you guys check this out? And they were like, no, thanks. We don't have anything to do with that.
Okay, so what probably happened is they made something. In their building materials, they had some of these nanothermites, whatever they're built in or part of, or on some material or part of some material, and then they just don't want to admit it. And they're like, no, we obviously didn't use any of this shit in our building materials. That would be stupid. And would mean that the building fell down. And I mean, obviously something else happened.
Yeah, something else happened. So that's the thing. But I guess the thing there is that, let's break that down. So the three main points are no planes hit the building. Sorry, the three main points are NIST didn't mention it in their official report.
Right.
Including finding nanothermites if there was any. Number 2 was no planes hit the building. Number 3 was the BBC mentioned it.
There's that BBC thing. That's kind of interesting.
It is kind of interesting. Okay, now I just have some quick thoughts on that. Is that, yes, it's possible nanothermites could have been in there, but the fact is that building was burning for the Twin Towers were hit, sometime in the morning, early morning rush hour commute. So hours and hours later, like 7 or 8 hours later, this building is burning full blast and it collapses. That doesn't seem so suspicious.
Right.
And then people were like, well, it's never happened before. But now with the value,
usually the firemen come in, they put it out.
well, the firefighters had a lot to do that day.
Well, yeah, they were a little busy.
Then that's
a little
busy.
preoccupied.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where I'm like, maybe if it had just been that, the firefighters probably could have helped out.
Sure, unless there's a cat in a tree somewhere.
And so they could have helped out with that, but a cat got in a tree. Oh, and the twin towers. And so it could have been nanothermite, but it also is like it was burning. And then for years now, and I've talked to people about this, they've been like, it's never happened, but then it happened last year in Tehran and Sao Paulo, Brazil. Woo! And so it's like twice now it's actually happened that a building of the same size from fire without thermonuclear, the detonator, it didn't play a part.
Right.
So, allegedly. So I'm like, and then, yeah, so that's kind of the first two, like the NIST didn't, oh, sorry, that's nanothermites. NIST didn't mention that in the theory, but NIST had a whole lot to mention with the Twin Towers themselves falling down. And this was kind of a casualty. So I've heard this whole thing being compared to like, you know, if Batman was telling his origin story, he'd be like, yeah, this robber came out, shot my parents.
Right.
He probably wouldn't talk about what else the robber did that day.
Sure.
Or like if the robber
also
shot
was
someone else on the way out the
gin,
yeah.
and previous to that was with a hooker.
Yeah.
You could tell.
Came out
tell.
stinking of herpes.
Yeah.
Shot my parents, riddled them with bullets.
Yeah.
And then grabbed a Frogurt on the way out. So there would be points in that story that he would because the main story was and has always been that the buildings that the planes hit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it being left out of the report, maybe they should have done a little bit more, but there's a lot there.
Sure.
And they did say like, okay, look, fire brought this building down.
Also much like, you know, the firemen.
Firefighters.
And firefighters.
They're fire women too, Charlie. Fire women. Come on.
The fire people had a lot to do.
Fire people.
You know, the investigators had a lot to do too. I mean, there's a lot of shit happening at the same time.
Can you imagine
in this
even in
concentrated area?
7 years.
Yeah.
That's not that long when you think about how
It's your job every day is you have to go back and investigate this stuff.
Just
crazy.
getting, it's crazy. Just finding there's so much when that whole theory is so loaded, so this is just one small part of it.
And that's if everybody you talk to is telling you the truth.
And that's just
where they're like, no, we did not use nanothermite in any way in the building. We didn't even, I don't even know.
Yeah. And it could have, that's what I meant is that the things that make up nanothermite, they talked about aluminum, iron oxide, other things, those things could have been found in varying amounts in other metals used to build the building.
Right.
So if you're like, we found aluminum, we found iron oxide, that doesn't mean you found nanothermites. That means you found
the separate particles.
Separate particles.
Sure.
You know. And the last one is the BBC thing. Okay, now before that is really suspicious, but it's important to note that building again was on fire for like 8 hours. The firefighters had been pulled out of it,
right,
and they knew it was coming down.
Okay,
like it was ready to explode.
And so it was green screened in.
Yeah, she was doing one of those like weather map things, and she's standing in front of this display, and she's like, this building came down, and then this building, and then this one, and on the display behind her, it looks like she's standing in front of a window, but she was actually in England doing a BBC thing.
Totally. So, but in the thing that's being green screened, in the footage that's being shown, is that building on fire?
It's smoking.
Oh, okay.
But it's just standing there.
Okay.
So then she's like, it fell down too, and it clearly hadn't fallen down yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just footage from earlier.
Well,
or from some part in the day.
It's from some part in the day, and that's where.
Also, was that a completely live segment, or was it pre-taped? Like many things, even live radio is pre-taped. I'm making air quotes when I say live radio.
Man. Yeah, Charlie's got the fingers going on now. Hey, now stop it. That's obscene.
Oh,
wait a minute. Oh. Hey, come on. Come on, family show here. Oh no. Oh,
then we got this one. Yeah.
Got the
it's a party.
So I got sidetracked here. No, I feel like that's one of the things that it looks like a live video. But it's what it is. And she's like, I slipped up. I don't know. I made a mistake. I heard this.
This is reading off the teleprompter. Isn't that it?
I was
Don't
reading
they
off
just
the
read off the teleprompter?
Yeah, exactly. And it's the classic Anchorman situation. She read
Right.
it without considering,
Sure. Well, it goes by so fast, and
goes
it's
by
just a
super
stream of words, right?
And in that day, there would have been like this news, this news, this news.
a big day.
It was a huge day, and it wasn't just New York. It was the Pentagon, and then there was a plane that went down in the middle of Pennsylvania, and then there was an airfield that had a missile strike put on it, and all the air traffic and like the world was shut down.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff. I mean, there was a lot to talk about that day. So I don't know. That for me, those three things are awfully like NIST had a lot to deal with. The building was on fire for a long time, so it didn't necessarily need to be hit by planes. And she was reading the news, but it was a building that was clearly going to fall down. But she said it fell down before it did, even though the guy that owned the building was like, "Get those firefighters out of there. We got to save those guys."
Sure.
Or he was like, "Get them out. It's time to pull the building down."
Yeah, brother. Yeah, dude. Pull the building, dude.
Okay, so the New World Order. What do you feel about the New World?
That's a real deal.
That's the real deal.
Yep.
Okay. You feel like that's a real thing.
That's
here.
the thing. That's why I walk around. I got a New World Order pin, not the wrestling one, like the triangle, like the whole thing, right? Like just I figure New World Order and the Illuminati and that kind of stuff, if they exist, and you wear the pin or you have the the sigil, maybe they'll let you in.
You're like
I'm just gonna fake my way in, fake it till I make it.
Yeah, the I for one welcome our ant overlords. Yeah. No, I can
let me in the club.
Yeah, man, that one for me, it's like you talk about these people. It's like, okay, is the theory super rich people do bad things? Absolutely,
sure.
But these super
do
rich,
they hang out and cruise with their other super rich buddies and do these things in tandem on tandem bikes?
Okay,
sure.
Do they do these things where it's like, we are going to set up something that will unfold in 100 years?
Oh, that's some next level shit.
But that's what they're talking about. I mean,
good planning.
That's where a lot of the Illuminati, the protocols of the Elders of Zion, the Freemasons, a lot of these guys are like, they are building. That's the culmination of history, and it's like that's a bit of a stretch,
maybe. But if you are super rich and powerful, and you're not just you are a whole bunch of people.
You are a whole bunch of people.
And you meet all the time, and you talk about stuff all the time. You have meetings, regular meetings,
sure,
and you have nothing but time and power and money. Why not do some shit?
For sure. So, and that's just where it's like,
do you like, hey, bet you can do this. Bet you I can get this done. It's going to take 100 years, so we're not actually going to be able to, our families later on are going to have to come in on this bet. But I bet you I can do this.
I guess I feel like one of the keys of being kind of a super villain is I don't know what the word is. Kind of a narcissistic streak where you're like it. You want to see the results immediately. So someone's not going to put together a conspiracy that they're not going to be around to see the fruits of. Right. That's where I'm like, yeah.
Well, there's also the idea, if you look at it from a different angle, where they're not trying to create a conspiracy or anything terrible. They're starting off they're setting something up because they think they're doing something for the good.
Yeah. And now that's where, that I can believe that, where people are like, we're going to kind of, like people are going to be like, I'm mumbling here, but it's like they want to put their money and resources into something that they see as being progressive.
I listened to another podcast earlier today.
What?
Yeah,
Judas.
You got to keep up on your news, right? And they were talking about this guy who learned this amazing way to feed most of like Russia or something like that, or Germany or something like that, by doing this crazy thing with carbon or ammonia. You know what? I don't retain a whole lot of the stuff I hear like that, except for some key words. So he figured out how to save a whole bunch of people by feeding them. And then also later on, when the war started, the same thing that he used to save people could be used to hurt people. And then he kind of, whatever happened with that, he got ousted from the army or whatever, and he wasn't allowed to play anymore with the toys. But then the Nazis got a hold of his super serum, what have you, and used that as the gases in concentration camps or whatever.
Yeah,
and he was a Jewish guy.
Well, it kind of sounds like you're describing Einstein in a sense.
It was an Einstein.
I know, but it's the same kind of, like, without the world hunger thing.
But like the idea is he was doing something for the good, and he figured it out. He figured out how to do something good, and then somebody else took it and was like, "Oh, I can use this to fuck up people."
So that's the same rationale behind I've got this vaccine that'll prevent smallpox, and people are like, "Hey, we could also put in some kind of mind control drug into that because everybody's going to get their kids, vaccinated,
right?
And that'll make the population easier to control." And so that kind of thing comes in. That's one of those things where it's just so easy to lump it into one.
Sure.
New World Order. Mm-hmm. That's this can. It looks just like Coke. They're trying to sell it to us because we like Coke. New World Order.
New World Order.
Yeah,
New World Order.
I don't even, it just seems like it's just so incredibly broad. And I got to think of it like this. If you try to put together here we go, a rehearsal with your band members, think of how hard it is just to get 3 other people in the room with you at the same time.
Or try to set up a podcast recording or a rehearsal with your bandmates or anything like that.
It's hard. And so to pull off something on this level 100 years in the future, like,
right.
Really?
But, we have our resources. They have,
yes, we do,
their resources,
and maybe that's the part that my naivete is missing. Okay, let's. I think we both made some good points there. That is an interesting. Looking at it, it's hard to be objective and it's hard to be subjective in that, because the big thing is if we were billionaires, we might be able to be like, hey, let's start a war. Sure. Hey, let's create a country. Let's have a new gender.
Yeah. Let's
take our pants off and dance around in the rain.
Can't take my pants off twice.
Let's put our pants back on. Okay, so Paul McCartney. I got to say this right off the bat, man. First of all, just a little experiment for you, Charlie.
Yes.
Now I know we're deep in the bowels of your man cave.
This is it.
Yeah, and now it's hard to see. The only light in here is this Budweiser neon thing going on, and all these sports poster paraphernalia.
Lots of old beer posters.
Yeah, old beer posters and nude women.
Yep.
But what I would like you to do is if you could just fire up the Googles on your
Got it.
All right. One of the things I was reading was saying that walrus means death in certain countries. And then one guy was like, yeah, man, walrus is the Greek word for corpse. Huh. So I just want you to go to Google Translate if you'd indulge me here. I'll tell you what.
We want to take the word, the English word walrus.
No. Let's try it the other way. So let's try it. So English to Greek.
Okay.
So put corpse on.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Now let's see how this goes here. Yeah. Underneath it says Patoma. Okay. So put in the word death and see what that translates to in Greek.
Oh yeah. Thanatos.
Thanatos.
Close to Thanos.
That sounds like Thanos. That's probably where Thanos comes from.
Totally makes sense, I'm sure.
Okay, now let's try this the other way around.
Swip it.
So put Greek to English and put walrus in the Greek side. See what it comes out as in English.
Walrus translates to walrus.
Because walrus in English is probably the same word in Greek.
I guess, and it means
walrus.
Fat,
like the animal.
Big tooth, sad bastard.
So maybe back in the 60s, I would have heard this and been like, that's possible. But the fact that this theory continues to go around Paul McCartney, like let's look at it like this. They found a guy that looks like him. The odds of that are staggering.
Okay, now, you know what? While we were chatting, I kind of Googled some of those pictures that were like Paul versus Fall.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, dude just got older.
Well,
you look different when you age. I don't know if you know that, but that's a thing. You get some wrinkles and shit.
It's true.
In your chin.
But there are people that are like, his earlobes, his eye color,
shit sags, man.
His nose, his bloody chin.
Some people's eye color changes daily.
Oh, I know, man.
Back and forth.
I notice your eyes are sparkling right now with eroticism.
I really hoped you'd notice.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. So for me, I'm like, that is just 100%
as much as I would like for there to be some crazy next level, deeper meaning stuff in some of these albums, in some of these album covers, in some of these song lyrics, and maybe there is, maybe there are. But the idea that a couple of fucking stoners are sitting around smoking up, listening to Beatles and being like, hey man, you know what?
putting meaning where it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too much of that for me to go with it.
He's turned around, man.
It's like, he was going to a Rolling Stones concert and he picked up that hitchhiker, so
yeah, it's crazy, man.
she killed him, man.
She killed him. And then that's why it's on the album cover.
It's on the album cover.
They didn't want to keep it a secret. And in the
You know what would happen if they didn't want to keep it a secret? They'd make it public and they'd say,
They'd make it public.
guess what?
Yeah.
This is fake Paul. This is robot Paul.
Yeah.
This is Android Paul.
Oh, that would have been so much better.
And
if
then
it was actually like Robot Paul.
Could you imagine?
Like he started to cry and his head melted. Not programmed to rock. And and that's just it. Like the whole thing where they're like, oh, he signed a lifetime contract to keep performing under that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I guess Garth Brooks died in the 70s and that's why he's still going.
And then Chris Gaines showed up.
And then the Rolling
Chris
Stones must have
Gaines.
all died and been replaced. And the AC/DC, they just recently stopped touring. They must have all died and been replaced. And
Well,
it just the fact that these people keep going.
Or Anunnaki.
I know. And then it's like
they take the meat suits and then they're like,
shape-shifting aliens.
Look, I got this meat suit. Guess what? I'm Paul now.
It's something else, man. That kind of thing, I'm like, it's a cool theory. It would have sold records. And I'm going to come back to this point, but come back to this in later episodes. There were a lot of bands in the 70s that came up with an idea or a subtle thing that the fans might have been interested in.
Sure.
They committed to it and they used it to sell records.
Here's another thing too. Yeah, if you're a stoner, like not only are the fans stoners, openly doing drugs, but the Beatles themselves
The Beatles themselves were
are also
pretty intense.
hanging out in a studio all day, fucking doing all these drugs,
Yeah,
and being like, it'd be really cool. Hey, it'd be really cool.
It would be really cool.
What if we just put all these death references everywhere and everyone thought Paul was dead?
It's one of those things where, I think it's like a interesting, they're thinking this'll sell some albums. This will get people talking.
Yeah. Also, as a business person,
It's a
and you're
meta kind of thing.
Hey, people are saying that you're dead.
Yeah.
What if we played up on that?
Yeah, totally. And then what they were doing was they were getting the record, they were selling it, and then DJs were getting the record and playing it backwards on the air. And they were like, you get your record at home and you play it backwards and you can get this crazy message
So
too.
A, they're getting record plays. B, they're selling product.
Yeah.
So-
And they're creating like a weird story that's just, other guys are like, hey, we have a single on a record. And these guys are like, man, one of our guys died and you can get messages when you play it backwards. It's like a whole full meal deal versus a little snack. So I don't know, man.
People need to do that more nowadays.
That would be cool. Yeah, man. I mean, that's basically it. Like, I think that theory, in a sense,
It's really
like,
good marketing.
It's a cool idea. It's a cool idea that people are attracted to. And to be honest, there's not much more that attracts me than like a really dark theory about a really beautiful thing, like something grim and nasty about the Beatles. I'm like, I love those guys. And it just, when I heard about all this, I was like, that just makes them cooler. That just, damn it.
It's like I said last time, just with all theories, all conspiracies, all supernatural stuff, just like the X-Files, man, I want to believe.
Yeah.
I want somebody to be able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt and show me the proof and be like, boom, here it is right here. And then that would just make me the happiest ever.
Well,
however, I ain't seen it yet.
I'm gonna close this off with there's a clip of Chris Farley talking to Paul McCartney about this, and he
wait, is that for real?
Yeah, and he dismisses. We'll stick it in here. Well, I'll let you listen
I
to
want
it.
to hear it too.
That was a hoax, right? Yeah, I wasn't really dead.
So thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for listening. And you can find us on Twitter, Patreon, SoundCloud, Libsyn, iTunes, YouTube. The email address is itsaconspiracy@protonmail.com. You can also get a hold of Charlie at
oldmandesign.com. Get your illustration and graphic design. Hey, you want to make some weird conspiracy shit? Get at me. Let's do it. Let's make some cool stuff. Let's make some shirts.
Right on, man. Some shirts and some tinfoil hats.
Oh, let's make some branded tinfoil hats. Yeah.
All right. So thanks so much for coming by, and thanks for listening, and take care.
It's a conspiracy!